Future Now Show. Brought to you by the Club of Amsterdam.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Future Now Show. Today, we're joined by Adriaan Kamp, founder and director of Energy for One World, to discuss global changes, new energy realities, and the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Hi, Adriaan. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Kathy, and thank you so much for inviting me in on this show, on the Future Now Show, and to share a little bit of a moment with you on the theme and topic you just introduced. Happy to be here and very happy to speak about it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. And what is your organization, Energy for One World? What do you do?
Now, basically, Katie, it's all started a couple of years before the Paris Climate Agreement and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And it started with a simple question: how do we fuel, how do we give 9 billion people sharing one planet and give and fuel them and give them enough energy and economies? And we were playing a little bit with these thoughts already in an oil and gas company. We looked at the future of energy, and basically we couldn't calculate it on the back of an envelope how we would do it profoundly. So without getting into trouble. So we said it's good to scout a little bit and to think a little bit beyond the borders and the boundaries of a corporate, where it's all a little bit contained and where people are thinking about profit and strategy and portfolios. And if you think a little bit for the social future, it's about the global community, global civilization. Well, you needed a little bit of breathing space and a bit of fresh air to look with your own eyes and to start scouting a little bit what future we were going to create and what future we were going to see. So that was the origins. And basically, and then somehow on the top of a mountain in Norway, I started to, create a little bit of a booklet of, before you can make the future, you first have to see the gap of what companies are presently doing and what you actually want them to doing. So there was a bit of a gap what we expected that we needed to do and what companies were doing. And the second thing when you're on the top of the mountain and you write a little bit of a booklet is also to understand you come from a history and tradition, and there's a bit of healing work to do, because in the world of oil and gas and power and money, there are a couple of things and traits and characters of human mankind which are not very helpful if you want to make a very nice and bright future. So you need to do a little bit of healing, you need to do a little bit of thinking, an ideology, an ideal, to bring that together. And that's basically what I started doing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I see a lot of your work also deals with geopolitical events and changes going on in the world. So in what ways are these global changes affecting our energy transition?
Now, a little bit to add on the first, and I will weave in with you. So the thing was, I started also, education. I was one of the first to start energy transition classes in the Netherlands with, say, the energy professionals in the Netherlands, utility energy specialists, Shell people, and people from around the world. So I started with that even before the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. And the thing and the thought was, you cannot make the future if you do not understand also the global change in the future. So, say, the economic, the social, the ecology, the political dynamics. So you have to be very good in the understanding the painting you're in, and what the demand or the invitation is to understand. Because one thing, Katie, energy, so people of bankers, they believe that it's money what lets the world go round. But if you ask energy professionals, they will say, nothing will move in this world. Everything made of physical stuff is made with energy. And you can't move a house or a truck, a car, a plane, or you cannot move from A to B without energy. So energy, for the energy professionals, they understand we cannot have a good humanity if we don't have energy. So we started with these early classes and early, engagements, and slowly, it's a journey of 10 years, which I share a little bit. Started to become aware that also this whole dialogue on Paris Agreement and Sustainable Development Goals, it's all also linked with the way we relate within the nations, the geopolitics, but also global change and the way we are going to conduct. So that was all weaved in these classrooms. And we experienced that helped actually the professionals to get a little bit more open, to see a little bit more the urgency of what we were aiming to do, and also a little bit of the ideal which we wanted to do. So it helped in a certain way. Yeah. And to add then on your question of global changes and the energy transition, what are the things which are really at play at this moment? 50 years ago, the Club of Rome already started to preach a little bit and saying, well, there is something on this planet, like nature, natural world, and we have the engineered world, the world of people. And we know there's a little bit of, a clash, a potential clash, if the people start to have lifestyles and economies which do not fit on one planet, or which the nature cannot carry, whether it's in the air, the climate, or whether it's in the waterways or in the earth resources and the minerals. So 15 years ago, we already knew something about the limits to grow or the limits of earth resources and the nature, so that ecology is something of a serious nature. And over the last decade, actually in this journey of this energy for one world, or this journey of how do we make energy available to all people of the world without any concern, we basically started to understand as well that the science, of course, 50 years ago was a little bit different. Science was not yet outspoken and didn't give alarm bells or warnings on, hey, your biodiversity, you're killing the biodiversity, hey, your waterways get polluted by petrochemicals and other stuff you're making, hey, there's plastic in the ocean, hey, we have gone very intense with our farming and with our industries. We didn't have the science community yet so outspoken. And also with the climate change, people for a very long time, we are going for COP28, for a very long time, people were thinking, this climate change, it's a slow moving process, technology will move faster, we will adapt, we will be able to change, and it will not be so, so horrendous as the alarmists are saying. So like, even in the 1990s, there were people already alarming about the rate of what it could do. But over the last 10 years, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of scientific reports has come to the table, but also World Meteorological Organization, the people who record the weather for the weather, which actually has happened on this planet. They also have reported over the last decade, and they say it's not good, and alarm bells are off. It's really on the red. It's on the red on the way the droughts, the floods, the fires, the glaciers are changing, the sweet water is changing. So there's something serious going on in the way humanity has created a civil, engineered economies and global civilization, and the thing how we start to affect the climate. And one thing, Kitty, and I should stop then, but with this climate thing, so it's a one-dimensional element, but the nature of climate change is that it also affects, nature itself. So your food production, but also the holdership of your jungles or the way the oceans are being populated. So it goes into changing, a little bit the human environment. So, in what kind of climate are you living? And, do you have to make sure that your buildings keep up because of the storms or the floods? But it's also the natural environment which is changing. And that combination, that you could say that there's an urgency. There's an urgency from the Club of Rome. There's also from the Earth resources. There's an urgency for the climate change. Now the whole dialogue around that. There's actually quite an urgency in the relationship between global North and global South, between the rich people and the poor people on the planet, and on having the ability, I can see you now sitting somewhere profoundly in New York. I can see all your beautiful outlet and where you are, but people also in Bangladesh and everywhere around the globe or in the global South can see lifestyles of the 1% very rich people going in private planes, having golden taps, having super dinners and having everything on their table. They can see that with social media with the mobile phones. And it has an effect on the emotion of people, on social justice feeling of people, and also on the trust of people in their leaders or in the way of, the different nations behave between each other. So that's another thing, is that poverty and social justice are also connected with this game of, making a great future. And ultimately, you ask about it, the geopolitics. It's true. We live presently in a world. 10, 20 years ago, we hoped, when we started with the United Nations Millennium Development Goals and then the Sustainable Development Goals, we hoped that we could create a world of 197 different countries, different traditions, different backgrounds, but with one common thing, is that they have a common dream for the common home, for a one world, not a broken world, but where a world where people listen to each other, want to speak with each other, want to relate with each other, and they don't build walls, and they don't start to attack each other, or they don't start to, shame and blame each other, as we have it a little bit now between the big brother of nations, which is not very handy. So that, and if you want to make a good world, you can make a world out of hope, and you can make a world out of fear. Eh? And a good world is made out of hope and about, if we are friends, you and I are friends, then if at a certain moment the banana tree is not full and we only have 1 or 2 bananas to share, at least we can have a nice conversation between each other, how we're going to share that banana between ourselves. But on the moment that people and countries feel, that the resources or the minerals or the oil or the gas or the, things are not all available, then you get this zero-sum game idea that some have to win and some have to lose. And on the moment that we are not good friends with each other, we start to rival each other, we start to harm each other, and that's not very handy if you want to make one world, at least a livable, comfortable, great future. So it's a little bit in a nutshell. Yeah.
Right. I mean, look at the BRICS nations, right? I mean, what a gathering of nations. You have Brazil, you have Russia, you have China. I mean, it's just it's becoming a multipolar world for sure. And
BRICS plus 19, eh? So 19 other countries have put forward their desire to also become member, and you have all these blocks forming. So you have African Union, you have Arab League, you have ASEAN, you have all blocks forming in this globe, and that's in itself is not a bad thing. Actually, it's a good thing. It could be a very good thing, at least as these blocks start to work from the basis of that we become friendly with all other blocks as well. So the moment the blocks start to rival and start to say, we become, we are going to set our rules for the game, or we're going to do the harm to the other people, as we have it today. Yeah? The war in the Ukraine, basically in the energy sector, in oil and gas sector, has been a little bit weaponized, not only by Russia, but also by European Union, by the sanctions they put on Russian oil and gas, and thereby giving a signal to the world that you can, sanctioning economies or putting burdens or punishments out. Yeah, who are they to only decide that? And why not the Arab League tomorrow to decide that they have to sanction, for example, America or China for another reason? So if we start sanctioning each other, we become in a very difficult world, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes, it does seem there's 2 different ways of thinking. There's the fear-based thinking that wants to isolate and protect and go backwards, and then you have this other side that it says, why don't we have more of a one world policy where there's more freedom to travel, freedom to work together, to collaborate, make sense of resources in the planet, and there's a huge need for that, and that is the more hopeful side, is that we can collaborate together and move forward for sure.
Absolutely. And the great thing is, ultimately, so if you go a little bit to the drawing boards, and that's the experience of 10 years journey in the energy transition. So the energy transition, why did it came? Well, it came about a couple of urgencies which we saw on the radar. If you want to have 100 years great ride with 9 billion people, so you had to do something in the energy sector to make it robust, and to make it clean, and to make it affordable, and to make it all around. And the second thing, what happened, is that in the first thing in the beginning of the century, basically solar, wind, grid structure, batteries, electrical mobilities, they don't were, quite skilled up or quite strong in the potential. But as I speak with you today, we know that we can electrify, much of our world today. We could have the dream that by saying in 10, 15 years from now, 50% of all the energy in the world is electrified. And we could bring, the wires to the people. We could, build the wind, the solar, the thermal from the ground, electric mobility. We could rewire, redesign the present. And with this hopeful thing, so there is this vision. China has a little bit this vision of making their state grid to go a little bit broader into now Central Asia and to go to other nations and to actually realize the electrification of large parts of the Chinese economy and the connected economies. And there's a little bit of this dream now going on also in America, in the US, with Elon Musk and professors like Mark Jacobson, who do the calculations, and they say we could put 100% renewable electricity and electrify our societies. And we know we can build gigafactories. We can run thousands of kilometers of ultra high DC voltage lines to connect, solar places with wind places with community where the electricity is needed. The thing, what holds it a little bit back, and that's the thing is, well, I mentioned we need to heal something of the past before we can progress. And there's also, of course, if there's a geopolitics of emotions that people don't trust each other, then there are people in the oil and gas community. So I'm now Mr. Oil minister of a gas minister, say of Russia or of Iran or of Saudi Arabia, to mention a few. And I say, I have all this wealth in my ground. It's given to me, I have it now. And now I have these technologists or these people from Europe coming to complain to me about climate change. But these people of Europe, they don't have any longer earth resources. They don't have reserves any longer. And now they want to take they want to complain about my product, my beautiful product, oil and gas. And so that's the reality as well. And there's also a reality in the world, like the Club of Rome, that there are more people who have made the calculations on the back of the envelope, and they say, well, if you have to have 3 or 4 generations of oil and gas for all these people, if this electrification thing doesn't work as we hope, this Elon Musk plan or the Mark Jacobson plan, then at least our nations, we have the oil and gas and we can power our communities, and let the other communities, let them stand idle. So there's this kind of bridge building required between nations, that they don't feel offended if we change the energy sector, that they don't think it is because of I don't like you and I want to go away from you because I don't trust your supplies. That's a very bad motive to change the energy sector. A better motive is to say, dear Katie, you're from Russia, I'm from Europe. You've provided me a long time with gas and I really enjoyed it. It has really powered my economies. But I see now also a great place for wind and all this stuff which we just mentioned. And I want to transit. I want to transit from the gas. And I want also, actually, when I do that, I want your help with it. And I'm going to do that in your country as well, so that you can keep your gas for longer and we can buy your gas for longer, but with a little bit less volumes. And these dialogues, Katie, we had these dialogues with Gazprom before the war in Ukraine. And the war in Ukraine, all these dialogues, the people of Gazprom were actually a little bit interested in that kind of thought about, that the world was so big and gas would, have a great future anyway. But it was, it gets killed by crazy events. Right, a little bit on that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, picking back up on this great electrification, as I saw you had written, I think that is such a great name for it, the great electrification, because it's true. I mean, we need to make that shift, and we already see it across the whole world. People are transitioning over to EVs, having Tesla power walls at their business or house, and we're making the shift. But what does this mean for the future of energy?
Now, to make a shift, that it's like, in energy systems have always been shifted. So we've shifted from coal to a little bit more gas and oil, and now the great electrification. So there's a power shift from a new technology to apply a new technology. The thing is, let's make it simple. Let's go for the car, for example. The car is driving, 80% around the world is driven by fuel, by diesel or petrol or whatever. And then if you say to these car owners that we go from petrol cars, we go to electrified cars. Electrification cars is differently manufactured. So first of all, Volkswagen and Toyota and the car manufacturers, they have to rethink a little bit their production design, the manufacturing design. So that's the first bit. The second bit is then that you have to have electricity available for all these cars, because if you go for battery powered cars, whether they are on 500 kilometers per battery or 1,000 kilometers per battery, you need to electrify them. So you need to make sure that then the people who made, the refineries who produced the petrol and the diesel, you have to tell them, sorry, boys and girls, but in 5 or 10 years, I'm closing you down. I don't need your refinery any longer. I don't need your product any longer. And you have to tell the boys and girls of, say, the electricity grids people, well, you have to wire up a little bit more, and you have to ramp up a little bit more in capacities to make it available. And ultimately, the car is also going to a garage for repair. The maintenance people, the people who have to take care of the cars if they're broken or when there's something and the dealership. And I think, Kathy, what I see now in Northwest Europe, to give you the example, the reason why I mentioned this, is that in essence, we could say in Europe, in 10 years from now, all the cars are electrified. But what we see happening is that there are some people in this value chain of the old value chain, of the supply chain of the diesel and the petrol fueled cars, they don't like the transition. They don't like to lose their job. So basically, it's not because of the new technologies are not, sound or solid or anything else. The whole dialogue is basically that then suddenly a car lobbyist organization, a lobby firm, start to say, it is impossible, our consumers don't want it. And you see newspapers starting to write as well. The government wants far too quick. The technologies are not available. And you get this argument or this entrenchment between parties, opposite each other. Not talking about climate change, but about the transition of, do I really need to drive an electrical car? And same guy, and that is basically, that's what we then called last year. We said, well, you humanize energy. Humanize energy means you have to have all people around the table. You have to give the people, when you change stuff, you have to give the people the feeling of trust. You have to believe that truly I'm not offending anyone. I'm not wanting to harm anyone. I'm actually wanting to build a better place for everyone. It has to the story needs to be right. The narrative needs to be right. That people feel we're not, okay, maybe we say farewell to something of the past. Maybe we have to, ceremonial burial and say, okay, this was a good bit and it has given us a lot of wealth and a lot of joy in employment, but we're going to transit and we're going to help everybody to transit and have a great life. So, and that's a little bit of a skill and a capacity in a lack, no one is really actually, and that's in governments and in corporations, you don't really see this ownership. So to say, earlier today, I watched the Shell AGM. It was the annual general meeting of shareholders of Shell in London. And the stuff was that some environmentalists took over this Shell AGM from the start. And they started to, bring them point into the dialogue for 1 hour. For 1 hour, they took over the thing. A little bit of the sadness, people may know I've worked with Shell, but a little bit of the sadness was that here it was that if people are angry or they're sad or they're scared for their future because of climate change, of pollution, or because they are really, young people, Friday of the future, like the Greta Thunberg, they're really, really scared about their future. And if you listened a little bit to my conversation, I am with them on the urgency. I'm absolutely with them on the urgency. The thing now is that, so if people start to, to only to be opposite to each other, and they don't listen, and they don't want to listen to the other, because the Shell board didn't want to listen to the ecologists, so to speak. Angry people, stiff board, not wanting to make the step to go to them, to put a hand on the shoulder, to say, fuck me, it's horrendous, yes. Fuck me, maybe I'm going to look with you. I'm going to invite you with a cup of coffee to come down to my office. I'm going to invite you to look at my programs and plans, and I want to listen to you, to your proposals. That's not happening. So, and that's the same in any transition, any change. If people don't feel that they're being included, that people feel that they're not respected, that people don't feel that their, the trust in their government is gone, or the trust in their corporations, the energy corporations is gone with high profits, but no commitment to the true investment or the true capabilities of the people, yeah, we lose. So this energy transition thing deserves a little bit of skill. Yeah. All right.
Yes, I mean, I know I was just in London recently, and there was a lot of videos I saw just after I left. I must have missed it, but there was a lot of the climate protesters that were shutting down the roads. Extinction Rebellion, I believe, is one of them.
Yeah.
Yes. And I see people that say, oh, they look like zombies, or look at these people, how dare they block traffic? And it's survival fear-based mentality. You get to a certain point in frustration or the doom of the future and whatnot. I mean, it's likely we may see more of this as time goes on if things aren't intervened with.
Yeah, that's a stride in the free countries of the West, if you may say so. Like in many countries around the world, some governments are a little bit more constraining the argument. So they don't let people speak openly or protest openly. And even in the ecological movement, which I know a little bit, environmental movement, it's at certain places it's even dangerous to speak about the environmental pollutions or the products going about. So there's a little bit of a gift that we still have free protest in our societies, or free abilities to speak. The other thing, of course, is what I just explained. And the thing is that science has been a bit of the vocalizer, or the empowerment for the people to say, maybe this whole neoliberal, or this way we're going about with bigger, bigs, greater, greats, faster, fast, with the foot on the gas pedal and growing economies, GDP, and growing, going with skyscrapers in the sky, and ever, wanting more. So there are a lot of people who feel a little bit, unease by that, if you also care about next generation and you care about ecology. So the David Attenborough of this world, who comes out of a forest and tells us, well, it's true, when I started my career, there was something like 45% still wildlife and things going about. But if I'm now 1996, there's only 4% really, wildlife about. So there is something going on, folks. And with his wise eyes, he cared to share his message to the world about the beauty of the natural world, and a little bit the intensity of the engineered economies, and the way we started to become spreadsheet robots, filling in papers and doing our stuff. So there is a little bit of a magic, rebalancing required to get, restored our relationship with our nature and our natural environment. The same, dialogue we had with cars, you can have in farms, where you have intense farming, and you have, biological farming, and everybody knows the difference between the two. One is an industrial product, and the other is still life on earth, the tree of life. So, and with a healthy product going into the supermarket. So we have that stuff. these dialogues going on, and with Extinction Rebellion, we had one of the demonstration here in The Hague, and there was also a club of Extinction Rebellion people going forward with all environmental movement going forward, and then the police had to take them away from the highway, but ultimately video cameras were there, but they were all granddaddies, very nice, decent people, normal communities. So they couldn't say they were true rebellions, So in Extinction Rebellion, they're just ordinary people, pensioners, youth, but also unfortunately, a little bit of folks who go into a museum and plaster themselves towards a painting. And that's also where, you may cross some lines. So in the but the importance of good governance or good leadership, if it happens, if you think about it, they put the police out there to remove the people. Well, wow, how beautiful if a minister took up the guts, put up in, the minister of, environment, or the corporate leader of an energy company, started to pick up his car, drove down Extinction Rebellion to this protest march, started to sit next to these people, and started to say, what can I do for you? What's the problem? What's the argument? How can we bridge our divide? And that 30 years ago, there was a great man in the Shell group. I mentioned it once. Was Mark Moody Stewart, and we had the Brent Spar event in Shell, but he also had something else. And there were all these protesters came to his home. And this young man, Mark Moody Stewart, is now 85. He's one of the, founder of Global Compact, UN Global Compact. He's a bit of a thought leader about our world. And what he did, he asked his wife, please make the tea. Let's get a lunch out. And he sat on the on his grass, how do you call that?
Like on his lawn?
On his garden, with these people, started to have the conversation and asked them inside the company. And I think that's the kind of movement we want in transition. You can either fight transitions, it has happened in the past, revolutions did that, and people who wanted to have a power fight over things. But please, just come together, listen a bit to the other. Care is a very good your heart about the care for the all, and work from there. Okay.
Yes. Now, what lessons have we learned over the past decade of energy transition, the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, and climate action?
Good question. Thank you, Kate. The thing is, I call it halfway 2030. Yeah. So we started with this whole journey of formal programs at the UN government level and corporate level in 2015 with the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, after 2015, a couple of things happened which were a little bit off the normal streak, and off the beaten path, and it has really affected a little bit the progress or the thought and the thinking about these programs. First of all, in 2016, we had President Trump becoming the president of the US, and taking a paper and saying, I'm pull out of the Paris Climate Agreement. So the first, that was an act. The second thing what happened over the course was a little bit, the corona plague, which let the people stand still. The whole world was suddenly in a complete different modus of operandi with government interventions, but that also stopped a little bit the thought and the progress on, how do we go about sustainable development goals and the Paris Agreement, because we have first our health to take care of and our economies. And then the last one which we had on this journey was a bit the Ukraine war. So those are a little bit, the ugly ones on the path of progress. But good things happened as well. And let's focus on the good things which happened. First of all, I mentioned in the beginning of the conversation that climate and sustainable development, Club of Rome, there are a couple of things which are all urgent and they are collective. social justice. So it's a collective thing, and therefore I call them the Sustainable Development Goals. It's about, rich, poor, east, west, the whole environment, not only one element of the environment, and the totality of humanity going forwards. But the good thing is that with so many science and experts has dived upon both the climate change, agenda, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals agenda. And there's a lot of, wisdom and knowledge and understanding has come to the table. To mention you one, which over the last 10 years, Club of Rome updated their program of looking forward to this human development, which we're in. And they said, basically, we only have to 5 key factors. If we manage 5 key factors over the coming decade, we have a great chance to make a great future together, Katie. And it's very simple. They say, first of all, it's a little bit of education to, not only so that all youngsters in this world have a skill and a set and feel that they participate in the world, so that no one is left behind. So education and also awareness a little bit about what we are talking about, but then on different skill levels, of course, for people, but understanding about nature, understanding a little bit of society and economy. The second thing is very simple. They said, we need to solve this poverty stuff, this inequality stuff, this fact of the 1% rich versus the global 4 billion people live still in relative global poverty and are all going into, global cities, in the slums of global cities, with a life without a future, so to speak, or with ambition to become middle class, 20,000, 40,000 euros a year, but to consume, because the whole dream we give to people around the globe is a marketing dream of a lifestyle dream, a TikTok dream of you have to have all the gadgets and all the fun, and then you have a good life. So there's a little bit of going on there, but if we don't solve this poverty thing or this inequality thing, also in countries itself, you get anger, crisis, collapse, wars, conflicts. So you have to do that. 3 and 4 are basically the energy system and the food system. And we spoke briefly about it, about the farming, intense farming or biological farming. And we spoke about the way we fuel our economies and we better take care of a better system. And the 5th is a little bit to do with you and me, is that equalities, they consider it very important. If we have a good human development, then also the ladies and the boys and all the sexual orientations and everything, and all the colors and all the backgrounds and all the beliefs and all the religions, on the moment that we see that we're all human and we care as each other on the same basis and we don't differentiate, that will be a great gift as well. So those are 5 key elements the Club of Rome presently go about as saying, if we take care of that, it makes good sense. And then the learnings of the 10 years of energy transition is, if I may speak, I would say, I've seen governments and corporations trying to and there's a lot of greenwash or a lot of words, and there's a big gap between the words they speak and the things happening on the ground or the abilities they have on the ground. In the free markets of the West, the governments have led the energy industry to the energy industry, to the corporations. And so they don't have the skill sets, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the abilities to change. In the corporations, there are the shareholders. I watched this afternoon to one, where the shareholders say, I want my bumper profits. I want my bumper dividend. The shareholders of corporations, they look only at their own wallet. So our corporations in the free markets of the West, and there was a conferences around on it, is can we have, for the change from one system to another system, can we have corporations in the ownership of shareholders who have only the interest themselves, but not the utility of that corporation to society? In essence, all in all the free markets of the West, all the free markets, if it's in Europe or it's in America, no ExxonMobil, no Vattenfall, no E.ON, no, you mentioned them, they have an obligation to society to exist. Tomorrow they can decide we're not going to give any, we stop with our production in Europe, or we stop our providing of electricity in Germany, and we because we have better profits somewhere else, or we don't like the government any longer. So the commitment of free corporations in the West, so shareholder-owned corporations in the West, is too low to make the change. So we have to change a little bit the governance of these corporations if you want to make the change. And the governments of the West, if I say, you know, I want to be net zero by 2050, it's a great statement. But if I ask them then, what are you doing coming Monday morning, or what do you do in 2025 or 2030? And I see the plans which they're making, and we see the gap between what we hoped to see as energy professionals and what we see them doing, I can say, well, it's a little bit of, you know, go to Mark Jacobson, go to Elon Musk, go and get a little bit of education and fire up, guys, or go to China, State Grid, and fire up, guys, do a little bit better. So we need that. And we also need that not only in our own societies for the change from A to B, but we also need it because the global South is looking at the global North, or the, you know, these wealthy people who are making the future, who like to make futures. What are you doing for our people? What are you gifting to us to help us to do the same? And why do I have to buy it for expensive dollars or for expensive euros with profit takes? I cannot, you know, the products you sell me or the services you want to sell to me, I cannot afford if you look at the people or if you look at the abilities of our country. So we have a little bit of work to do there as well, and a little bit of responsibility to do that as well, in my view.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, we have mentioned a couple of times during the show, the pandemic and the effects that it had. Now, we all heard the phrase, build back better.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the one-of-a-kind Klaus Schwab saying that we're going to build back better.
Yeah. So the conspiracy theories is straight away, you know, the global elites are going to take over. But it's true, Klaus Schwab started with the term, and it was basically also picked up a little bit by, you know, Biden in his, you know, with Bernie Sanders, this idea.
Yes.
That, after the election, they would build a little bit more social, just economy. So some of the elements I spoke about, and they also wanted to make a more robust and sustainable economy. So there was this drive and this ambition that after Corona, we would rectify a couple of the things which we saw and noted were not working in the neoliberal system, but also the Corona system, you know, like the fall of the Lehman Brothers in the financial system at 2008, there was also some learning, and people were a little bit concerned, is this whole card house which we have created and, you know, in the financial world, can that exist, and can that continue to exist, or do we have to worry every night and again, when will the next one fall? So it's you know, if you build something for the future, it's better to build something on stone and that you can trust than on water or sand, or that you are scared every time that something can happen. Lehman Brothers did that in the financial system. Corona did it in the global health and say traveling around and intense holding of animals and the way we were eating and the zoonology. And that scare, some people hoped and believed that when we all had to sit lockdowns in our lockdowns, and we all said we suddenly didn't have to drive to our, you know, we didn't commute so much, and the cities were a little bit more quiet, and the air got a little bit, you know, cleaner, and the waterways, you know, we saw more animals back in the rivers. So people started.
Yeah, in Venice, that was amazing how the waterways were so clear.
Yeah, yeah, people started to observe that. And people, I spoke with, they said we loved walking. We started to walking in the forest. We started to, have more free time as well because we could work at home. And, in pyjama days, we could, just go out and go about. And that was something that we hoped that, well, and no airplanes, for example. So we hope that some of these things, lifestyle changes, that they would embed and would stay with us after, the corona. And we also hoped, of course, that some learnings of, we are maybe a vulnerable system and we better, slow down a little bit, walk a little bit in more beauty. So take care a little bit about our own times, our own hygiene and, community care and things like that. And don't start to rush about again. And don't start to put on the gas pedal again and rush for everything in your life. And unfortunately, so after the corona, it took a half year, but after half year, everybody was back. The whole thing went back, and so it doesn't have to be that black and white, but in this Build Back Better thought was something as well of we have to start reconsidering a little bit this only GDP growth, only corporate agendas, or and think a little bit about lifestyles and about sustainability stuff in our. So I don't think that's so the agenda flopped in a certain way. Yeah, I think Biden spent $1.7 trillion. He got that. So not the Bernie Sanders ticket number, but it was grossly spent, of course, on Corona catch up. So on all the bills and the tax and everything what people needed after the Corona affairs. And he has an issue now in the US, of course, where he has his debt ceiling. But in Europe, after the Corona, the new crisis, the Ukraine crisis, came on top of it, of the Corona. And it's true that inflation and things like that is affecting people. Food prices, energy prices, inflation, debt. It's affecting a little bit people's outlook. So this Build Back Better comes back to the bit of the start also of a conversation. It's easier to build back better in peacetime. It's easier to build back better if you do not have to, worry about someone is wanting to harm me, whether it's China, Russia, or myself. And it's easier when people on Extinction Rebellion, when they're sitting on the street, they feel a little bit of confidence that the corporates and the governments listen to science, listen to ecology, and show a little bit more gut and direction of yes, we can change, and we can change for the better. We can give you a little bit back your trust. Yeah.
Yes, it's hard to say. Are we building back better? Yes, in some ways, and I agree with you. I think that it is indeed much easier to move forward with fixing these problems when we're in a more peaceful, open-hearted state rather than the opposite.
Yeah. So and that's an eating thing. So one of this. So Jeffrey Sachs is a man, and there's Kissinger also, but there are many men who've argued that please, let's stop this war. Let's, on the moment that you say to yourself, I'm not going to fight any longer. It's very complex, with World War II and everything else, and sentiments and also this stuff. When are you defending, or when are you willing to die for something? But the ultimate thing is we have a reality of 9 billion people. 197 complete of different nations with different sentiments, different traditions, and if we cannot express a common home or a common wish, if we cannot transcend about our own national pride and our own national importances, but we can say, no, I know there is a national pride and there are national importances, but ultimately I like peace between the nations, and I like to make good. I like to make prosperous, good, trustworthy communities. That's an it's a fire inside you. That's a mind map which you can always bring to the table. But on the moment, and that's the best gift you can give communities as well, when you say, we're going to make things better, or we're going to make things easier for you. I'm not going to burden you with CO2 tax or with, energy tax or, restrictions on when you can drive your car or things like that. No, I want to make life better for communities. And I want to, employ the best professionals, and we will organize stuff better. Can be done. Can be done.
Now I have to ask, I asked this question on our last show, and I have to bring it up again because I'm wondering if you've seen it. There's an Apple, I believe it's Apple TV series. It's called Extrapolations. Have you watched it yet?
Katie, these days, if I don't know anything, then I Bing it. I do ChatGPT. So I typed in Apple TV series Extrapolations and understood that it is to do with climate crisis, and that it can come from not a good place to a worse place to hell. So that, and that's the thing about our civilization. Huh? So are we going from crisis to crisis to crisis? And do we see that behavior, or can we truly, and that's why I'm a little bit, I like this conversation. I like to give people the courage to say the decisions now, the way we speak now, the tone of voice we have now, the things we are reorganizing now. So our trade relations, the way our corporate behaves, or the responsibilities, everything now helps us to have a better room, a better care, and less worry about that we go from crisis to crisis, but more feeling of connected world, a happy world, a world where we can live together. We enjoy each other. We enjoy differences. We enjoy difference in governance system. We enjoy difference in cultural systems. We enjoy difference in religious systems. So on the moment that we instill joy in the differences, and we take the barriers away of that, people have to be afraid of me, or they find me greedy, or they see that I have set the rules for myself, then we go for extrapolations, I guess. I don't know the TV series, but that gets the ugly part of humanity. So I'm pleading for the beauty part of humanity. And it has always been there. So the beauty part of humanity has always been there. And this whole thing, what we're talking about, energy transition and change, it needs this better part of humanity in it to fire it up, and to get the better decisions, and to get the better frames and the better dialogues at the tables. That was a bit of so maybe my energy for one world is the opposite of extrapolations. I don't know, but maybe you can explain it to me.
No, it's definitely in line with everything we discussed on our show today. Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It'll give you a good laugh. Yeah, and I will. Yes. And now lastly, my favorite question of all that I like to ask all of our guests is, what is your vision of life in the year 2050?
I will be 90. My parents are now 90, and I enjoy sometimes being with my parents and to walk with them and to wonder about this planet. And the thing for the thing is that I started this 10 years ago. I literally dropped my pen inside the company and say the way we are going to do it inside this company is not going to help us to 2050 in the way you and I have been discussing. So the fact is that it's truly about this deep wish, this deep desire, and the abilities that our world can become a beautiful place, and is a beautiful place. And that the best gift people can do and make is to, I sometimes call it deep peace, deep humanity, deep ecology. So it's care. It's live with your heart for the world, and receptive for the wonders of the world and of humanity. There's a wonder in humanity which we can unlock and which we can share together. And whether it's, I watched one of your programs about deep transitions, where there were 3 types of scenarios of deep transitions, from technology, modernity, the Elon Musk futures, towards a little bit the ecological path, and towards a little bit this deep conscious path. in essence, we will have them all. We have them all. It will always be a mixture. It will be a mosaic. But the beautiful thing is of 2050, where I'm clear, today we are a little bit difficult place. It's a difficult place, and it's truly some alarm bells may go off. I hope they go off after this conversation. But also this opportunity to unlock and to make this world a beautiful place is there as well. And they are so close to each other that I cannot stop saying, tomorrow morning I wake up again and I'm going to work again to bring this beautiful world closer to this best alarming world we are a little bit in today. And if each of us does that, wow, what a place we will have. Yeah, so it's a kind of a small commitment to make the world a better place. And of course, you can only give, or you can only create, or you can only make. You have to, of course, take a little bit of your care about your own, personality, and about, that you are truly also so I've taken the journey of stepping out of the system, stepping out of, the corporate agenda, the government agenda, become a little bit fresh and start from scratch again as a pupil, learning to walk in more beauty. And that's also slow down, take a little bit more time for things. Don't aspire too much. Lifestyle changes, less is more. So those are things you can do, lighten your path. So only by lightening your path, you can also then, of course, you are a little bit loaded, hopefully, to bring these two a little bit closer to each other. Yeah. So.
That was very well said. Well, thank you so much, Adriaan, for coming on the show today. It was such a pleasure having you on today. And yes, hopefully we will be able to interlock and move forward into an amazing future.
Thank you so much, Katie. Thank you for inviting me. And I hope I will look forward to next shows of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And yes, thank you. And to our viewers out there, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the future.